Okay, well, hi everybody who's tuning in with our live here at Citygate. We're at Women of Faith, Main Point Women of Faith. And I think I just have one announcement. It's about our upcoming 3rd anniversary celebration that will be Saturday, May 2nd. Everyone's invited. Bring your friends and family. Bring a dish to share. That's the only thing we ask for. It will be at Woodcrest Retreat. Doors open at 4:30, dinner's at 5:30. There'll be worship, testimonies, updates on what's happening in the ministry, and things like that. So we hope that everybody can join us there. I think that was the only thing I was going to announce. So Debbie's untangling her cord to bring her computer along up with her. One other thing I should announce that I haven't announced here is Main Point has purchased a house that's going to be used as a men's discipleship house for guys coming out of a recovery program. So if you can keep that in your prayers. So that's exciting. So I'm sure Floyd will be talking about that more at the March 2nd anniversary celebration, but if you can just keep that in your prayers. They're now, it's been purchased and they're now doing renovations on it. It's here in Ephrata, so that's an exciting step.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. So, yeah, whenever you're ready, Deb, we'll get you started. And Audrey Miller is here with us tonight. She's going to be our speaker March 13th. Yes, second week of March. And I'm so excited because we're coming up on Easter, like 2 weeks after that. And she's going to present some Old Testament information about how Jesus was in the Passover and the other Jewish celebrations, and it's so interesting. So I'm really excited for that night and for Audrey to share. So it's great that she can visit with us a couple weeks ahead. But you guys, whoever's coming to speak is welcome anytime. Like you can come and join us even if you're not speaking. So, all right, Deb, you can come on up.
No, I'll just use this right now.
Do you need to plug in?
Yes, I do need to plug in.
Let's see. Where can you plug in? Where it's going to reach. Where's your cord? I'm always afraid I'm going to trip over stuff.
I know. Me too. There's one.
Okay. Yeah, that will reach. Great.
Are we good, or should I pull over?
Are we good, Deb, for the
Yeah.
camera? Okay. We have two Debs I'm talking to, so that gets a little confusing, but I'm going to get this out of your way and this. So our speaker tonight is Deb Bacon, and I will let you talk about your designations because I will get something wrong. But I've known Deb for, quite a few years. I took some classes at Lancaster Bible College, and it was for lay counseling. And she was one of the teachers in that nighttime class, and she was one of my favorite teachers. So I lost contact because those classes were over, and I wanted to contact her because, I don't know if you all know, but I oversee Citygate here in Ephrata, and I was looking for someone to come and train our volunteers in how to deal with mental health issues. Because we're street level ministry, we get a lot of people in that struggle with mental health issues and addiction and things like that. So I dug through all my old paperwork from the classes I took, and thankfully I found her email address. And this was a couple years ago. So she's come and done some training for us at Citygate, trainings for our volunteers. So I am very grateful for her, and I love to hear her present things because she works in the field with mental health issues, and she's been through a lot of things herself, which I'm sure she'll share some of that, and how God has redeemed things that have happened to her in her life. So anyway, that's kind of the backstory and how we know each other. So now we get together once in a while for breakfast and chat about things, and I run things past her that are happening here, and I need some insight into. So she's always agreeable to meet and talk with me about things. So I really appreciate you. I really do, and now she even lives near me, so
Yes.
just down the street. So it's awesome how God, brings people back. I mean, you've heard that, some people that have come to speak I knew a long time ago, and now we're reconnecting. That's one nice thing about Facebook too, is that you can reconnect. Audrey, we knew each other as teenagers. We lost touch all this time, and so. Main Point has brought me back together with people that I haven't seen for a long time, but that's how God works, and so anyway, I will pray for Deb, and then she can get started. Well, Father God, thank you so much for Deb and her heart for you, number one, and for people. She is a big helper of people. She's dedicated her life to help other people, and especially those who struggle with mental health issues and things of that nature. And I just thank you that you brought her through the struggles that she's faced in her life, and that you've redeemed all of that. And we just give you praise and honor and glory for everything you've done in and through her and in her life. And so we just give this time to you. We pray for Deb as she presents what you've given her to share with us tonight. So we just give you the honor and the glory, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Good evening. I don't know if many of you have suffered with some type of mental illness, or and mental illness might include substance abuse. It might include personality disorders. And if it hasn't been you, have you lived with somebody that has suffered from that? And you know that not only do they suffer, but those who are with them feel their pain and also have an element of suffering as well. It's not just an individual diagnosis. It affects the family. And I know that because I've lived it. So I want to tell you, I'm going to tell you the story about the redemption, but before I tell you the story of redemption, I've got to tell you that in 2012, and I was teaching at that time, I don't know how I did it, but anyway, in 2012, I needed to put my husband into care and treatment center. He was struggling with opiate addiction as well as alcohol addiction. He was mixing, and it was changing the nature of his brain and how he related to myself and the family and himself as a mother. And the pain, he had a lot of health issues as well. He had juvenile diabetes type 1, and that had neuropathy and those type of things with it. And there were undiagnosed mental health issues. Now, they did say that he had substance abuse, which definitely was a problem, but they were really not too keen about diagnosing in some of those other areas. Oh no, Deb, he doesn't have that. Oh no, Deb, he doesn't have that. So, well, you don't live with him. You don't know what I know about some of these mental health illnesses. And as I was living with these mental health illnesses, I was sharing about them in class, about what is it like when people have personality disorders, especially cluster B? You know, and you're like, oh my, this is too much for me to handle. Or when somebody has substance abuse disorder or a mood disorder. Okay, so just say they have all of those. And then they have medical issues. So you're living with this and you're seeing the person's struggle with those. But then also there's a direct result of that, where their maybe love-hate relationship is also with you. And so all of a sudden you're part of that hate piece. And you're just like, what did I do? Why? Well, it was part of the mental health issues. But then also, you know, nobody was going to diagnose things. We went to counselor after counselor, and I'm saying, well, I'm seeing this, and they're saying, well, no. Or I went to a hospital. Oh, let's just give them more opiates for the pain.
Wow. Yeah.
And I would fight with the doctors, and the doctors say, but Mrs. Bacon, Mrs. Bacon, but he wants it. I said, he's an addict, and when you give him more opiates, it's going to exacerbate the situation, and this is going to make it worse. But he has his rights. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, okay, but you're feeding the behavior. You're feeding that problem area. How is he ever going to overcome and get a healed brain if you keep feeding this? Now, I got to tell you, hospital after hospital after hospital in Lancaster County. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I was saying to them, you've got to feed these meds. You've got to get them off of these meds. Well, he wants them. I said, who's the doctor? Who's in charge? Who's overseeing this? Well, I am. Well, you're not helping. Because after he's done here, he comes home. And he's not well up here. He's not well physically, he's not well. Kim and I were just talking today about, she says, oh, Deb, you lost weight. I said, from the inside out. I mean, my cholesterol was up, my triglycerides were up, my cholesterol was up. Why? I was trying to cope with dealing with the mental illness that was in my household. So, put him in care and treatment center in 2012, and he was there for 30 days, and I'm thinking, oh, good, this is going to be great, right? I'm going to get better. Well, it seemed like we were for a little bit. Do you know it takes 18 months for the brain to heal from addiction? Do you know how hard it is for that brain to heal? And the pull, the brain saying, I want more. Feed me, right? So, you know, we were out of that. It's been a month, and I'm thinking, oh, good. 2014, we're back in treatment at the retreat. They're saying, okay, we're gonna nail this thing. We're going to get over this addiction. And, okay, let's see what happens. So we come out. I'm not sure really what's going on. And 2018, we're back at Eagleville now. We have the kidneys are not doing well, and he has to be monitored because of the medical conditions. So he had to be in a medical facility. So we were at Eagleville, and we didn't have this long in Eagleville. We had like 3 weeks, and they're saying, oh, they're not going to pay anymore. Mrs. Bacon, he's got to come home. I said, not ready to come home. I said, well, you know, we're done here. Excuse me? 3 weeks? The brain's going to get healed? Not going to get healed in 3 weeks. I had a man standing by that was going to take him to a halfway house. I was all excited. He was going to take him to the halfway house, and I thought, oh, good, we'll be on the road to recovery. And Eagleville said, we're sending him home to your house. We're sending him home tomorrow, and then we're sending him home with a van from here. Oh, swell. So I still have a brain that's not, you know, he's still not right. And meanwhile, we have these medical things. I'm just like, okay, God. And I'm a believer, and he's a believer, and I'm praying, and I'm like, what's happening to this man? And so you know, he came home. And soon after he came home, he was in the hospital because the kidneys failed. And so we were back in the hospital, we seen things, hallucinations, cats coming out of the ceiling and everything like that. And of course, then he had fallen and different things like that, and they had to do surgery, and they're like, oh, let's give him opiates again. Right? Yeah. So I said to one of the ladies at one of the hospitals, I'm not going to say which one, but I said, why do you keep giving him opiates? She said, well, he's in pain and he's falling over. I said, yeah, but again, look at his history. Look at his lifetime medical. Look and see what it says. He's an addict. Call his doctor. Talk to his doctor. The hospitals don't always talk with each other. If somebody's from a WellSpan, they don't talk to Lancaster. They don't communicate, you know. So you're in this position, and things just kind of got, you know, where the one hospital couldn't handle him, they put him in another hospital. Still couldn't handle him. And he had kidney failure, so he had to go on dialysis. So meanwhile, in this period of time between 2018 and 2019, it just got worse, where he became abusive not only verbally, emotionally, and then finally physically, because you can't get somebody out of your house even if they're attacking you, right, until you put a PFA on them and you get them out. Right? Yeah. So now this is a person I love. So like it's so hard because you're being attacked by the person you love. Yeah. And you're being treated totally different by the person you love. And this is painful, emotionally painful, psychologically. Now, I was in the middle of working on my doctorate, and I was trying to take care of him because he was falling all over and all this new diagnoses. And, you know, now my kids were young, so that wasn't, you know, I didn't have to raise any kids at this point. But it was so hard because I'm battling this person because they don't feel like they have a problem. I don't have a problem. I had one of the best teams in Lancaster County. It was a medical team, and they would come to my house. Head doctor came to my house. Awesome. Looked him straight in the eye and said, you gotta get off the stuff, or you're not gonna have a marriage. Oh no, my wife will leave me. He said, you have a block, because he had the surgery, and he wanted, of course, more opiates. And they said, the block's good. The doctor said, I'm monitoring you, and that's going to help with the pain. You do not need the pills. He said, oh, yes, I do. Do you know there's a doctor in Lancaster County who just gives the scripts up real easily? Do you know I confronted that doctor? Like, my name's Deb, and I'm a warrior. And so those of you that are Deb. And I went to this doctor each time he was in treatment, and I said, you're going to have to stop giving him the scripts. This is what's going on. He said he has his rights. I mean, it's all about the rights, right? And it doesn't matter about health and safety here, but it's all about his rights. So I kept giving him that. And I finally pulled all our files, and we went to another doctor. And this guy called the doctor on the phone and said, watch out for Mrs. Bacon. Watch out for her. She's dangerous.
Good.
This was a Christian doctor, too. I mean, a fellow believer. He can't even eyeball me now. I've seen him in public, doesn't even look at me. I'm ready to go, hello. Do you remember me? But it doesn't matter now because, at the time it was really painful. I got to tell you, I feel like, you can imagine doctors not doing what they need to do. Being mistreated by your husband with all these mental health things. And so in 2019, I threw him out of the house, which some of you might agree with, some of you might not, but when he tried to strangle me on 2 occasions, and I'm trained, or I think I would have died if I had been trained. Got him out of the house and got a PFA against him. And again, very, very painful. This is horrifying. This is the person I love. I waited till the physical trauma, the physical abuse came to be. Now, maybe I shouldn't have waited that long. I did have a really good friend, a medical doctor in this county who's a specialist in addiction. And he was my care group leader. Talk about God's sovereignty, right? He was my care group leader. And he'd say, Deb, you need anything, you come to me. And in the state of Pennsylvania, you cannot get a legal separation. I don't know if you know that, but you can't. So he kept buying things and putting up the credit card and doing, catfishing and all sorts of things that people get into when the brain isn't working right? And so it was really, really painful, and like, what do I do? And he helped me walk through this journey of having to separate from him, having to do a divorce complaint, having to get a lawyer, all horrible things, very expensive things. He was a major breadwinner before he went on disability. I was a meager behavior specialist, but it just was a lot at one time, and it just was, again, so painful. I have to do this. I have to get a divorce from this person. I have to do this, and then the stigma of getting a divorce in Lancaster County. I felt like I was going around with a D on my shirt, and of course nobody said anything, but I felt like a D was right here. Very painful. I never wanted a divorce. I know. Oh, so yeah. And so then, as when he was out of the house and all, they didn't know what to do with him because they had all these medical conditions. So one of the hospitals took him in for a month. One of the hospitals, I took him in for a month. Who knows whatever they fed him and did with him, but he was in for a month because couldn't be, and then they found him a place to live, and so he lived there, and he destroyed that place because, again, his mind isn't, And then they put him in there. He went to another place, and the policeman had to knock down the doors, and he had been high on heroin, and they found him in the bathtub. Over and over again. And I'm just trying to paint a picture about all the abuse to himself. Okay? So like that was the case. But when he was with me, that was also transferred to me. So it was really, really painful. And my kids, some of them tried to see him, but they didn't stay for long. They had like boundaries. And then, he would say he wanted to see me, and they would say, no way. No way. My parents got me into another place to live because he could get into our house and he could do whatever he wanted in the house. So my parents got me into another house, and it just sounds, doesn't it sound like a soap opera or something?
Nightmare.
Like, how can you live through this? This was my reality. It was kind of crazy. So, but my kids kept saying, you can't see her, that type of thing. Got all my stuff out of the house. My kids helped me get it out. So now he's allowed in the house because we didn't allow it to happen, even though the attorneys were like, he can bust down that door, he can come in your house, this is his house too. This is the mentality out there, right? I'm not gonna be in a house with this person who's like attacked me, strangled me, No. So we pulled out, and then my son took him to the house, and he goes in the house, and we're not there. And they say, he says, where are they? He says, oh, I'm not telling you, Dad. He said, well, why not? He said, because you strangled Mom. Oh, I didn't strangle. Yes, you did. You strangled Mom. So again, the thinking is still not right? We're still. Okay, so you can see all this time and all these things that are happening. Finally, a little over a year ago, I guess it was a year ago in October, he was put in a nursing home because there was no way that he could live on his own, and the kids finally convinced him. And they had gone through the apartment, and it was just atrocious mess, and it's just like totally unaware that he had it. It was atrocious mess. So he was put in a nursing home, and I would say to my kids, do you think it's time for me to see him yet? Because in the back I went, okay, I gotta forgive. Struggled with that. But I really wanted to forgive face to face. There was just, again, I love this man. And you think, how can you do that? It's only because of the love of God that I could do that. Like, how do you love somebody that attacks you or abuses you or, But only through the love of Jesus, yes.
I think the only reason why that you were able to love him even after all of that is because you don't see him that way, or you couldn't see him that way because of the fact that you loved him so dearly.
Yeah, I did. I struggled. Boy, I struggled. I'm sure I was a gossip 20,000 times. Because people go to me, what's happened in your life? Oh, this happened. I was in pain.
I had many groups. I had my care group. I had a betrayal group. I mean, I had to have people. I had to have people I could go to and I could trust and who I could talk to. And I found them and God gave them. Well, I didn't find them. I think God just put them in my lap, as a matter of fact. But, they helped me walk through that. And some of them, and all of them as well, helped me walk through what I'm going to give you is the next part, which is the redemption story, which is really pretty phenomenal. You pray, sometimes you pray and you pray and you pray and you say, is God ever going to answer my prayer in the way that you want? Or, I wanted to be able to see him face to face and have that forgiveness. I wanted to be able to finish well with him, So I'm going to tell you that redemption story. Maybe. Let me just get this back on as it went on. I think I hit too many. Yeah. Let's try this again without shaking. It's kind of, I'm gonna get through that. Okay, come on, Deb, come on.
Technology gets us every time.
Yes.
Help it to work, Lauren.
Well, I never imagined that I'd be standing before you to tell a redemption story concerning my relationship with Russell Bacon. But here I am. Russell and I entered into marriage sold out for Jesus. We went to Bible college together. We were youth group leaders. He went to seminary. We went on a missions trip to work with the Navajo people. We ministered at a local church where he was the pastor, and we ministered at a local church here too, as we sought to raise our children to follow Jesus. But unfortunately, over time, Russell made some choices which broke our fellowship, with his wife and his Lord. And some of those things, those factors that I talked to you about, were part of the reason, or opened the doors to Satan in his life instead of coming to Jesus. My family and I grieved over the choices he made, but prayed that he would turn back to God and repent. But just because you have mental illness doesn't mean you're sinful. But the point is if in your mental illness, if you open up the door to Satan, then things will change. Okay? I work with people every day who have mental illness. They want to change. There's a desire, and it's so cool. And I would say, and I'd look at him and I'd say, why is it that my clients want to change and you keep making these choices? Now, I know the brain was doing what it was doing as well, and we needed, but you got to get yourself in therapy and stay there for 18 months, or you got to get yourself so your brain's clean, and we just wouldn't. So we grieved over the choices he made, but we prayed that he would turn back to God and repent. 2 weeks before he died, he did just that. I was so happy to have 2 church friends who went to the nursing home before me. These were 2 men that had been in our care groups, different care groups, through the years, and they agreed to go because I did not want to go down on my own to see him. And they arrived there before I got there. When I entered where Russell was, I asked him if he knew who I was. And he said, "My sweetie, I am so sorry I ruined our marriage." Oh, you can imagine, we were all in tears. The guys that came, myself. We were able to hug and share forgiveness and how much we missed each other. We spent the day reminiscing about Bible college and fond memories. he told me that God had to bring him to the place of having nothing. No phone, no money, in a nursing home, family not around. He let me know that he had reconciled with the Lord. He introduced me to his roommates as his wife, the doctor. I said, remember, I'm your ex-wife. He sang. I had turned on a song that he had loved in Bible college. It's called And Can It Be? And I put it on with a YouTube video, and he sang that. We were able to share with our kids about our reconciliation. He even asked me to remarry him and added, what would the church think of that? The next 2 weeks, he was a character too, as you can probably imagine. The next 2 weeks, our family shared the pictures, and we shared stories, and we shared meals, and we shared songs, as well as talked about preparations for his final journey to heaven to be with Jesus. And where we will see him again, but not yet. We would say, see you later, and sign I love you, when we would leave him. In John 14, 1-3, Jesus tells us, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. And in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And just to kind of add into this, during this time, this happened October 31st of 2023. And I had started getting involved with some missions projects. I love to go tell people about Jesus, and I also love to tell people with special needs about Jesus. And so I got to minister to people with special needs. So I was in Costa Rica in July, but then I was getting ready to go to Romania. And I was getting to go to Romania with a group called 10 Million for Christ. And a little bit of a backstory here is that 10 Million for Christ was named 10 Million for Christ by my husband. He had known the guy came to see him in the last 2 weeks before he died too. And he got a nice t-shirt and a sweatshirt and everything. And that was so precious because the man looked at him that runs 10 Million for Christ and he said, Russ, this is your legacy. And then on November 8th, I went to Romania to start to, minister to people. And it just had such a neat connection because this was something he had called into kind of existence, and I'm able to go and minister to people. So that was just a really neat thing, affirmation, and the man who led it loves the Lord and loved my husband as well. So, when I tell this story, it's not to tell about all the pain and everything, but it's to show you that God can redeem through every circumstance. And why it might seem impossible, and believe me, I felt it was impossible. I didn't know if we were going to get reconciliation this side of heaven, but God gave it to me, and he really showed me how much he loves me to give that to me right before he died. So, so hold on. Just keep pressing in. Your prayers, when you bring them to the Lord, it might seem like forever. It took a long, long time. It took a long time, but God was amazing, and what seemed impossible, he just showed a way. He showed a way. I don't know if anybody has any questions or.
Wow, right? Go ahead.
Yes.
So like in the years where you were still living with him and like working on your degree, what helped other than the groups? Like
My chair for my doctorate, the lady that was kind of in charge of helping me to walk through that, she had been through 2 divorces, and they were horrible. And she actually shared with me. She, was very careful because she was a professor. She actually shared with me, and she said, some days you're just gonna not want to do anything. I want to sit on the couch and cry, and that's okay. Yeah. I went to Grand Canyon University, Christian University, out in wherever it is, Grand Canyon. And so, yeah, and she was great, just walking me through and being there. It was a long ordeal for me because I had 3 rounds of research. I was working with people with special needs, and you have to go through all this IRB, and every time you have to do another round of research, you go through an institutional review board to get permission again and again. It was a long ordeal. It took me 8 years. But she was right there for me. And she said sometimes having that, something else, a major distraction, can sometimes be very helpful. And it was for me, that kind of helped. I don't know how I did it, because now to think to stay up till 2 in the morning and doing my schoolwork and getting it in, and I don't know.
Going to work.
Going to work.
Definitely God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because working with special needs people is more than a full-time job as it is, I'm sure.
Yes,
You know,
it is.
very draining.
I can relate. I can relate.
Yeah, but there God put her in your life. You know,
Yes.
all along, it sounds like God put the right people at the right time in your life. And that's what he does. He does that. And I jotted that down, that he put these people in your life at the right time. Anybody else have any questions or encouragement or?
Yes.
I have a question for you, when you were dealing with your husband, did you ever question your own sanity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I would go to, Dr. Joe is the guy that would help me, who's a specialist in addiction. And I'd say, I can't keep doing this. Like, I'm exhausted mentally, physically, because he would keep falling. Wouldn't know if it was the kidney failure, wouldn't know if it was the alcohol, wouldn't know if it was the opiates, wasn't sure if he'd be dropping dead any minute because of the combo of the 2. It was like felt like I was walking on eggshells, kind of. Some days it was like, what's wrong with me? And or why is he treating me this way? Why am I being treated this way? Why am I going through this? But like she said earlier, God has a plan and God has a purpose. And I've already been able to share this in Romania. I've been able to share this locally. There's other people that are going through the addiction, the mental health challenges, the physical challenges, and people need to have hope.
That's the big thing. And that's what we always say when we share our stories, because we all have one. It helps other people who may be going through the same situation that you already came through. So that's why we need to share, even though it might be, we might think it's embarrassing or whatever. God uses it. And I think I said earlier, God doesn't waste a hurt. Like we can't waste the pain. We have to share it. We have to share what God brought us through, because he can do the same for anybody else. When you said it sounded impossible for this restoration to happen, and your forgiveness and reconciliation and all that, and the Bible says what is impossible for man is possible for God. And at the last minute, basically 2 weeks before he died, God brought this all together. So that's what she said, keep praying, because what looks impossible, and I sure thought it was when Debbie reached out to me and said, hey, I can come speak at your group now, I'm planning my husband's memorial service, I was like, what? We have to talk about this, because I would not have thought that it was possible. from everything that you were through. But with God, it is possible. Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that were unsaved too.
What's that?
There were a lot of unsaved people at the memorial service.
Oh,
which was-
really?
yeah.
A lot of
Yeah, I was
unsaved-
amazed. There was about 100 people that had come to the memorial service. And yeah, it just was like, and when they heard the story, it was, and my one daughter who was like really negatively affected and everything, she's a dancer, and she danced and at the memorial service. So that was really neat. I was praying she would be able to do that, but it's just, there wouldn't have been a memorial service, if he had passed away without reconciliation. There wouldn't have been one. And then, God wanted us to testify of his glory,
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
and so that's the other thing too. I mean, he's working everything out for our good and his
Right.
glory.
Yes, we talked about that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead.
How did you connect to God, like in the pain? Like there must have been times when you felt really far away.
Well, I gotta tell you, this is a really good thing. The memory verses that you have learned so far, keep learning memory verse. Use those and keep adding to those, the memory verses, because believe me, that's what I was using. In the moment when I didn't have people around, I would just keep speaking his word over the situation. Just keep, okay, God, give me another verse. Give me another one. Give me another one. And then I kept thanking him for all the years of memory work. Because when I was a young girl, I went to camp, and memory work was the big thing. So yeah, the Bible, learning the scriptures and internalizing them. So when you're at these times, it's like, yeah, his word keeps over, and praying his word over your life.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. Praying the word. Yep.
How long did it actually take you to overcome everything with your passing of your husband and what had happened in your lifetime?
Well, I'm still processing that.
Yeah, he just died in December, right?
October. Yeah,
October.
October 31st, yeah. But the service was December. He died on Reformation Day, and he was totally reformed. Isn't that something? I love that. Yeah, I love that. He was totally reformed. He died on. But the other difficult piece was that my brother-in-law, who kind of filled in a lot when the gaps were there, when his brother wasn't around, and he would be there for my kids. He died 2 weeks before my husband died of lung cancer. So we had that, and then he died on the 13th of October, and then my husband died on the 31st. So it was like boom, boom. And so it's like you wonder how you can manage, and it's a grieving process. And I mean, my church has gotten behind me and gives me like these great grieving books, and so I've used those too. But I'm gonna be going to Grief Share because I just feel like everything that I can kind of take in, is gonna help in the process of continued healing.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you go through things, like when you're going through grief, I think our human tendency is to isolate. But go to support groups, go for help, go for counseling. Don't isolate. Like, put yourself out there even when it's hard to get motivated, because you need the support. So.
Where are the support groups for grieving?
There's just different grief shares. If you look online, you can find grief shares on Google Grief Share in Lancaster County, and then there's all these different groups.
And that's a faith-based support group. Yeah.
But I used to teach on grief and loss.
Yeah.
And
True.
And now I'm living it. So, it's like sometimes some of those tools, those things that I used to teach about, has helped me in the processing of grief and loss. But having that assurance of heaven, and having that assurance that we'll see each other again. And one of my final things that I said at the memorial service was, "See you later." See you later. I love you. See you later. And but now we're free. We're free from all the the addiction challenge that we struggled with, for quite a while. And, and I know he's with his mom and his dad and his brother.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and, we talk about grieving, deaths of people we love. We talk about grieving that, but, grief is more than that. Grief is loss of any kind, and I think sometimes we don't grieve our losses, like we should, and then we end up living out of that, pain of not grieving. There's losses you experience in childhood, loss of innocence, loss of, a dream, loss, there's loss of a lot of things that maybe we don't think about, but you also have to grieve those kind of things. Like you grieve the loss of your marriage,
oh yeah.
and things like that. So it's not just death, that causes grief, so.
And I know I've talked to you before about this, but like I work with people with special needs, and many will never drive, many will never marry, and their losses are ever before them.
Mhm.
And so, I'm sorry for them. I feel bad for them, and I try to give them tools to help them to deal with all their losses in life, because they have a lot of them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And you said about his legacy with the, was it 10,000 for Christ?
10 million.
10 million. That's even better. 10 million for Christ.
It's a ministry,
and how that man came, to talk to him at the end there. And, I think we have to think, what do we want our legacy to be? What do we want to leave behind, after we're not here? And I thought that was an important piece. His legacy, it's hopeful, and it makes me happy to think that his legacy is not all the bad choices that he made, but this mission that will go on, when he's not here for who knows how long. That's important. So think about, what do you want your legacy to be, and then make choices that are going to feed that instead of the negative things. So yeah, a lot of good points. Anybody else have anything for Deb? Any encouragement? Any?
I just want to say thank you for sharing that. It was very encouraging,
Oh God.
and it just really warmed my heart. I mean, it gave me hope for some situations in my life, and it's just a beautiful picture of restoration.
Yeah.
It really is.
Only with the Lord.
Yeah. But God.
But
we
God.
say a lot around here.
Yeah.
But God, it all changes when we allow Him into it.
And I will be praying for you, because I can't imagine what it would be like to reconnect with someone and then lose them like that.
Yeah, I know. I had tears.
I used to say to people, I think the man had 29 lives or something like that. Yeah, my kids were always saying, is he? Well, we don't know. He's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for a month. He's had COVID. They don't think he's gonna make it. He makes it. Like all these things, but God.
Yeah.
See, because God was hearing my prayer,
Mhm.
and He's like, we're gonna do some great stuff here.
He wasn't finished with him yet.
He wasn't finished.
And that's, kind of what we talked about. We can't see the big picture. We can only see, like, what you were going through, all that terrible stuff you were going through. That's what you could see. But God knew at the end how it was going to finish, and, I think Mark Batterson says we're one prayer away from a miracle. Keep praying, because we can't see the whole picture. And, wow, that things ended like they did, I mean, not ended here on earth the way they did is great, but, for eternity, you'll be reunited,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal.
Anyone else?
I can have to say, I can relate to you. I had a husband that was very abusive and on drugs, but it didn't end up so well. So, but I did when I divorced him and remarried, he also remarried, and I just wanted to hear I'm sorry. I was praying to God, please, like, we're gonna be friends. Like, we ended up being almost best friends, even though I was remarried. It was crazy how it happened. I wasn't even fully following God. I am now, and I just kept praying, God, I just want to hear I'm sorry. Like, just please, I just need to hear that. And I got that the day before he was killed.
Oh, oh my.
But God.
But
there we go.
God.
Yeah.
But God had a plan, because I know he was still very sick and very obsessed with me at the time. And I really believe that God took him out for a reason. So
Your
it
dad's
wasn't
part of your life.
it wasn't like a happy ending, but like, I can relate to that.
And you work with special needs people too.
Yes,
We know each other.
we know each other. Special
Yeah.
needs world.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
thank you so much for sharing, Deb, because it's not easy to go back and kind of relive those bad parts, but the ending, you can share the good part too. So, yeah.
But there's hope in the midst
Right,
of when
yes.
Absolutely.
When-
Yeah,
When you're
there is.
in your struggles, there's hope. When we have God in our life, there's always hope. And this just shows it, 2 weeks before somebody dies, they make things right, and
And it can happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
it can happen. So thank you so much.
Aw.
Give you a hug.
That was awesome.
I love you. You're so awesome. And thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks.
So join us back next Wednesday night. Come in person if you can. If not, we'll be on live, hopefully. We almost didn't get it started tonight, but thankfully we got that figured out. So we'll see you next week.